I was talking to my brother the other night, and he said, "Hey, I saw your channel. I saw what show you just started." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, "Your channel really hates you, don't they?" It's Romania Black, and yeah. Which he told me that based on a couple of other series that I started that I really end up enjoying: Attack on Titan, Berserk, and Neon Genesis. I love all those series, but he kind of started that conversation the same way. He was like, "They want to see you suffer, don't they?" And I was like, "No!" So I've sworn him to secrecy. That's all he would say, was that. But last episode, I wasn't ready for. I figured this series from episode 1. I was like, this series is kind of creepy. It looks like it might do some creepy things. Last episode, I was like, it's doing some creepy things. Now, I have a long introduction to get through, so y'all will have to excuse me, but I have had some dedicated patrons and dedicated commenters offer up a plethora of information going into this episode, and I was like, okay. So we've got quite a lot to get through. I had to make like a Google document of all of the things that are going into this, but it's fine. Everything's great. We should be all right. There's a lot going on, and we need to talk about it. So we're just going to dive right in. Gus Na told me on YouTube that it's pronounced Madoka. I was right. I thought from the first episode it was Madoka, but then in the episode it seemed like they're saying Madoka, and I was like, what is happening? But he said it's Madoka. I'm like, I'm going to go with you, Gus Na. If I'm wrong, it's Gus Na's fault. But thank you. Thank you for that pronunciation. That helps out a lot. And then William West. William West went on this big spree, which I'm really excited about, talking about the 4-act structure in Japanese narratives. Now, I feel like after this episode, I'm probably going to be bringing it out on Whiteboard Coon along with another comment by Pancake. I'm going to be bringing out possible things. But they were talking about how in Japan there's a 4-act structure, unlike the more Western stories that have a 3-act structure. I'm very used to a 3-act structure, but I just finished the series Monster, which I think uses the 4-act structure very well, but I didn't exactly know what it was called. And they said it's called Kisho Tenketsu, and it's basically KSTK. Get them acronyms in. And it's a rhetorical structure that is a way to tell a story. So you have ki, which is the introduction, which is like the hi, how you doing? Then you have show, which is the development or the story thus far. Ten is the recontextualization, the twist, the denouement, the non sequitur, the change, the new thing, like, oh, this is something new. And then ketsu is the reconciliation, or, oh, I get it now. It all wraps up together. And Monster is a great example of a series that uses that structure very well in its overarching series. So they were talking about how in the very first episode of Madoka, this structure is used repetitively. Like you have ki, hi, I'm Madoka. Show, we're in Crazy Land. 10, there's a cat. And then Ketsu, oh, it was just a dream. And that's like in the first scene. And it happens multiple times in episode 1. They have ki, Madoka, show, wakes up. 10, oh, I was from a crazy daydream. And then Ketsu, oh, I meet Homura. Then ki, Madoka and friends. Show, do Madoka and friend things. 10, there's an acid trip with witches. Ketsu, oh, it's just witches. We've got to get rid of them. Then ki, Madoka, show, and Homura. 10, have a strange conversation. Ketsu, cat? Ki, Madoka, and Sayaka, show, go on an acid trip. 10, Mami, Ketsu, magical girls? And it does that repetitively. So I was like, wow, episode 1 really does that 4-act structure within itself a number of times, which is kind of crazy. So I'm glad that you've pointed that out, William, because I feel like the 4-act structure, if you look at it this way, we have 12 episodes. The first 3 episodes are the hi, I'm Madoka. Hey, I'm Sayaka. Hey, I'm Mami. Hey, I'm Homura. Hey, I'm Hitomi. This is the magical girl world. Here's Kyubey. We've just introduced everyone in the first 3 episodes, and we've already lost someone. Done. Act 1, done. Now we have 3 left to go. So that means the show or development or the story thus far is going to be episodes 4, 5, and 6. Then my favorite part is the 10 or the this is new, which is going to be episodes 7, 8, Rule of 8, and 9. And that leads us into the 4th act, which is going to be the resolution in 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to see if that happens. We're going to follow along. We're going to probably bring Whiteboard Coon into it, see if it works out. But that was really exciting. I really liked you pointing that out. I did have a theory going into this episode. As I was rewatching episode 3, I was like, Homura seems very determined to keep Madoka away from Kyubey and the Wish. My theory is that Homura started out just like Madoka. She was average, she wasn't good at anything, she wanted power, and Kyubey gave her power. But my thing is, she didn't necessarily want to save people, she just wanted power to stand out and not be mediocre. So she got that from Kyubey because she can do all the things now, but the price to pay in Hunting the Witches was not worth the reward. So I thought that may seem like what is up with Homura. The difference between Homura and Madoka, though, is Homura didn't have like a purpose she wanted to use with that power. She just wanted to be stronger. And Madoka has a purpose in wanting to save people. So that is a pretty big difference. Now, whether that turns out to be a thing or not, I don't know if that's going to be true, but that's my theory so far. And then Pancake had a lot of things to post. So Pancake, you're going to take up the rest of this intro. But they were talking about how they shared in the Discord that the CD vinyl players, the whole time in the reaction, I wanted to say, oh, I think that was a thing. But I was like, oh no, what if I'm wrong? I don't know. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm sure those existed at one point. They did. Those little CD vinyl players, horribly ill-conceived, not practical at all, but they did exist for a hot second. So I was like, okay, cool. And then Pancake talks about a couple facts. One, the witch labyrinths are drawn by a different animation team, Gekidon Inu Curry, which is an animation duo who has worked with Studio Shaft on multiple projects. They describe their works as inspired by Russian and Czech animation styles, which awesome. Madoka's sketches were drawn by the voice actress, Aoi Yuki. So I like the little sketches in Madoka's notebook were actually drawn by the voice actress. That's so cool. I love that. If I was voice acting a character and my drawings got to be used in the series, how bitchin' is that, right? And then Katao Emiri, who plays Kyubey, was shocked that Kyubey doesn't have any lip movements because during the initial dubbing of episode 1, she tried very hard to lip sync, but afterwards there was a decision to not make Kyubey move his lips at all. You know what? That's kind of like a bitch move by the studio. Like, they made her go through all this trouble to match up the lip movements that she thought were going to be there and to make it work. And then they were like, nah, let's just cut that. She's like, wow, thank you for making me work 3 times harder than I needed to. So the other thing they were talking about was that in episode 1, The Witch Labyrinth, there are 4 creatures singing in moving streams of runes, which form a quote from the Hexen in Melons in Faust, which is a famous German play. Now, they translated the lyrics. I'm not going to write them all in Whiteboard Coon because it would take forever, so I'm going to read them to you, these translated lyrics. It's a bit creepy. So it starts out, the witch. This you must kin, understand, from 1 make 10, and 2 let be, make even 3, then rich you'll be. Now, from 1 make 10, does that mean like the witches being made from 1 to 2 and then 2 let be, make even 3? Like they keep making more witches, Kyubey does. Then rich you'll be, which could be Kyubey. Skip over the 4 from 5 and 6, the witches' tricks. Make 7 and 8, 'tis finished straight. And 9 is 1 and 10 is none. That is witches 1 times 1. So I think that all that is basically saying is that the witches are created by the magical girls, as we've been theorizing so far. I could be wrong. We'll see. I'm going to keep these lyrics because I feel like I'm going to want to go back to them over time as the series goes on. And the words in episode 2 are from the same play. Woe, woe, thou hast it destroyed, the beautiful world. With powerful fist, in ruin 'tis hurled, by the blow of a demigod shattered. The scattered fragments into the void we carry, deploring the beauty perished beyond restoring. Mightier for the children of men, brightlier build it again. In thine own bosom build it anew. Bid the new career commence with clearer sense, and the new songs of cheer be sung thereto. Yeah. Talking about beautiful worlds being destroyed by power. There could be some deity presence involved in that, rebuilding, you know, just fun, normal things that you see in a magical girl anime. And then these runes and normal German phrasers also appear in different places in the labyrinth in episode 2. These were translated by fans. The blooming roses shall be presented to the queen immediately. So that seems like, oh, these girls that have potential are going to be presented to Kyubey, the queen, really quickly. Maybe. Who knows? Cut. No trespassing. Fight harmful insects. Let's cut out the unnecessary branches. The blooming roses are bend into shape as planned. Well, that just seems like Kyubey is tricking them into making contracts. Presented to the queen immediately. The blooming roses shall be. Those are unknown flowers to me. Burn. I wonder if maybe the witch, Kyubey, is just like presenting these magical girls to the witches as sacrifices. I don't know. We might see. The first buds shall be plucked. Roses must be handled with care. The lush branches hinder good ventilation. It seems like it's very suffocating. A suffocating environment, picking these children before they've blossomed. Those flowers are unknown to me. Yes, they are also unknown to me. Shall we cut them off? Yes, let's cut them off. We present the roses to our queen, and the bad flowers go to the guillotine. Yes, cut them off. Yes, cut them out. Well, that just seems like we're slowly like searching through the witches to find the one magical girl that is the chosen one for the queen to have, which could be Madoka. I don't know. All I know is that's incredibly creepy. I've talked for over 10 minutes, and I'm ready to start this episode and just see what all we get. So, y'all, we just had a character death. I think that the girls are going to make miracle choices. I don't think they should, but I think they're going to out of sheer vengeance for Mammies. And what we do with Homura, I guess we'll see. So my dogs are hopefully going to calm down, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start episode 4 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Well, that was an aftermath episode. Okay, so Sayaka made a deal with the devil. She did the deal. She did the deal. She did it. We're going to talk about that. But this episode was surprisingly a lot lower key than I was expecting. I thought it was going to go a lot harder, but it's the aftermath of Mami dying, so what can we do? And it's a lot of Madoka and Sayaka kind of working through everything. The funny thing is, Madoka is really the one that's working through it. Now, granted, we don't get to really get Sayaka's perspective about it, but Sakia seems much more concerned about Kamijo than she is of Mami's death. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. We don't actually get Sayaka's perspective, so maybe she is worrying about it. But I feel like Sayaka is a much more selfish character. She's a much more selfish character than Madoka is. Madoka very much wears her heart on her sleeve. She's extremely empathetic. She's a big empath. She feels a lot of emotions, and she's very selfless. Like, she's wanting to save people with these powers. And Homura shuts that down real quick. She's like, yeah, no, these powers are not for saving people. If you get these powers, you're not saving people. People are going to forget you. It's a dog-eat-dog world if you get these powers, and everyone's out for themselves. And it's like, oh. So we're going to kind of put that up here on Whiteboard Coon. The idea, I've got some notes here I went ahead and wrote up as soon as the episode was over because I was like, I need to talk about these. But Homura talks about that being a magical girl is very selfish. It's not for people that you're fighting for. Because that was kind of what Mami made it out to be. And maybe Mami made it out to be like she was fighting for other people. And she kind of framed it that way for Sayaka and Madoka to be like, oh yeah, we're fighting to save people. Like, look at what you could do with your abilities. And that's kind of what drew Madoka originally into the idea of becoming a magical girl, of being like, oh, I can go from being a nobody that seems powerless to having the power to save people. Awesome. But Homura is saying, yeah, Mami was a rare exception. Most magical girls are not out. They are not here to save people. They are here to be self-serving for their own wishes and desires. That's what they're after. basically from Berserk, they're Griffiths. All of them are, so basically that's it. But I do think it's important to note that even though Mami had told Madoka that it was for saving people and she was framing it that way, we can't forget that at the very end of the day, Mami, who knows that being a magical girl is wrong, who knows that Madoka and Sayaka should not do it, who it kind of seems to have in her conscience like, oh, this was a bad idea, I shouldn't let these girls do it, but now they're stuck in this, they're caught up in this, what do I do? Kyubey's noticed them. Instead of actively being selfless and turning them away, she senses when Madoka's like, I'll be best friends with you forever. And Mami's like, I'm by myself. I could be friends with someone. I could work with someone. We could work as a team. And she lets her selfish desire to have friends overpower the logic that these girls don't need to be magical girls. And she actually makes a selfish decision to almost encourage Madoka to become a magical girl with her so that they can work together. Even though, as we find out in this episode, Mami knew about the whole territories thing. She knew about the girls fighting each other. She knew that wasn't a normal thing. And that's probably why she was so excited when Madoka said she'd be her friend and was kind of encouraged by it. Here's a selfless girl who's willing to be my friend and not fight with me over territories. It was something that Mami latched onto, and she ended up dying. So let's go into this episode. Like I said, Sayaka does not seem to be she seems to be sad about Mami dying, and they talk about it on the rooftop, which we'll get to that scene, but she's more concerned about Kamijo. She's a little bit more selfish because of that. She's more concerned about Kamijo and about him. And again, Mami brought this up. Mami's like, it's not your wish, it's what is your wish's intention. And to me, I do think that Sayaka, whether she realizes it or not, she's not necessarily thinking about Kamijo's best interests, but about her being the one to bring those best interests to him, right? Because when he's like, oh, well, my hand's never going to heal and stuff, she keeps trying. And it's a classic when you like somebody, you try to it's one of those things when you like somebody, you try to mimic them, or you kind of try to like the same things that they like, and whether you really do or not. And I've been there. I had a crush on someone in college, and I tried to like the same things that they did because I thought that would bring us closer together. It doesn't work out that way usually. And I think I know where this is going. We're going to talk about it. But she's trying to get on his good side. And when she knows that he's, struggling and that he can't play violin anymore, rather than her just put the CDs aside and say, hey, what can I do for you? How can I help you to feel better? I'm sorry you're going through this, but I want to be here for you. What can I do for you? Instead of her doing that, which she's a teenage girl, it's understandable she doesn't know what to do in this situation. I'm coming from the perspective of somebody in their 30s who's lived through that and kind of has the age and experience. But, whereas she should be asking the question, what can I do for you to help you? What will make you feel better? Instead, she's trying to play to his sympathies, play to this to get him to like her back and have a crush on her back. And I'm like, that's not the healthy thing to do right now when he's in this mental instability. But that's not what she's doing because she's thinking of herself. She's thinking of herself right now, right? And so then, she goes away and they're like, wow, she visits a lot. And then, now, the one nurse says, I'm glad she does because he's in a difficult mental position. But it's like, now, and here's the thing too, her granting that wish so he can get feeling back in his hand, he was in a difficult mental position. Is this going to stabilize him, or is he going to kind of go manic in the other way? What is going to be the cost of this wish? Because there's a cost. We're going to talk about it when we get to it, but there's a cost, right? I hope she's cheering him up. And he was a violin prodigy, but he'll never be able to play another instrument again. Yeah, the moment that was a thing, I was like, the moment she's talking about why did it have to be Kyusuke, she's like, why couldn't it be me? And I do appreciate that she's like, why couldn't it have been me instead of Kyusuke? And in that moment, it's like she's having survivor's guilt because of Mami's death. I'm sure that that's having an impact of her thinking that. But the moment she started talking about that, she's like, if I use my wish to heal his body, what would he think about that? Would he thank me and nothing more? This is the thing. It's like, she's not thinking, would it make his life better if he was healed? Would it make his life back the way it was? Would it make him happy? Instead, she asks, well, would he thank me? Would he give me anything more? I mean, if you truly are selfless, you would do those things for him without thinking about how he would repay you back. You wouldn't think about what his reaction would be. You would do it because it would be the kind thing to do if you were being selfless. But she's being selfish, and she's like, what am I going to get out of it? I'm giving you something. What am I giving out of it? And that's kind of Kyubey's whole thing. Kyubey's whole thing seems to be like, I'm giving you this magical wish to do anything. Why? What am I getting out of it? That means you have to fight witches for me, right? Because it's only natural you would do that to repay me for my kindness of giving you any wish you wanted. You know? So here's my thing. We talk about the price of the wish. I think that there's a price. You get the wish, you become the magical girl, you get all superpowers and everything, but there's a price. And it's not just that you have to fight witches for all eternity, or in my theory, you might become one. Look at Mami. Mami was saved from the brink of death. They said, Homura said she has distant relatives, but she's not with them. She talks about being isolated and being alone, but I'm like, if she was spared from death, was the price that she had to pay, was that her getting spared from death caused her to be isolated, or her family gave up on her? And that was the price, and now that's why she's lonely? And thus hunting witches and trying to find other magical girls to possibly communicate with. The thing that's very frustrating at this point for me in the story, and I know it's intentional, I know we're going to find out, but Homura is so quiet and reserved and close to the chest with everything. It's like she knows things and she won't tell us. And I know that there's reasons why she won't say anything, because she wants, her motto seems to be, the less Madoka knows, the less likely she'll want to become a magical girl. And I appreciate her going that route, but there's so much I know that Homura knows that she's not telling us. And I'm like, so I want to know, what was the price that Homura paid? It seems to be that she's alone. She's also alone in this. So is that the price? And, you know, the thing about it is, Mami, we never really saw Mami try to become friends with Homura. And there is that whole territory thing that we find out in this episode. But I'm like, is it because she knew that Homura wouldn't want to become her friend back? Was there a reason for it? Did she regret it? I don't know. My thing is, what I think is going to happen with Sayaka, she's got Kyubey to grant this wish to heal up her friend, Kyosuke. She's got these magical powers. I think what's going to happen is she thinks that now that he's cured, he's going to suddenly recognize, you know, what a great person she is for being by his side. She doesn't necessarily have to tell him that she's the reason he was cured. I mean, I don't see how she could, because that would be, how would he even believe her, right? Without exposing that she's knows a magical demon cat, right? But what I think is going to happen is she's going to go back to that hotel, or that hospital rather, and think that he's going to thank her and possibly want to date her and be so happy that he's got his abilities back. That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is he's going to have his abilities back, and I think he's going to go, well, thank you for being by my side, but we're just friends and nothing more. And what's probably going to be worse is if he goes to school or goes back on the road or goes to a competition, meets another girl and falls in love with her, and Sayaka's going to be stuck sitting there going, but I'm the reason why you're cured. Why don't you love me? And that's not how love works. And that's going to be the price to pay. Like, you did this not because you were being kind to someone, but because you wanted him to love you back. And that's not the right way to go about it. And that's why you're alone now, because you didn't think the wish through correctly, like Mami pointed out. So I think that that's going to happen. And then Sayaka's going to be put into a pit of despair because she's alone. I think the witches are created when the magical girls go into a pit of despair. So there's a good chance Sayaka could become a witch. I don't know. I'm just calling it now. I think there's a good chance. What could we do to make Madoka suffer more? What can we do to make Madoka suffer more? Oh, I know. What if we made Sayaka into a witch and Madoka had to kill her? What if we did that? What if that happened? I don't know. I'm going to be really curious to see what happens in this series with Sayaka. I feel like Sayaka, and I want to phrase this the best way I can, it's going to sound really harsh. I feel like Sayaka is expendable, like Mami. I feel like Homura and Madoka are the two being set up to be the main protagonist pairs. They're foils for each other in a way. I think that they're very similar in their backgrounds, but I think that they're very different in their personalities and their way of going about things. I think they're being set up to be the main foil, right? Like Chibiusa and Sailor Saturn. It's because they look like that. But I feel like Sayaka is expendable. I think that she's going to be another source of trauma for Madoka. I just feel like it's coming. I don't know why, but I just feel like things are going to go horrible for Sayaka because she dove in, didn't resist, and it's all going to go downhill for her. Because I think that in this world, if you're a witch and you're not a complete you're not either really strong or you're an asshole, you don't survive in this world. Because the girl in red, Kyoko, she seems kind of like an asshole. And that's probably like, she's a monster, and that's what allows her to live in this world. She's just as bad as Kyubey. So we'll see though with Kyoko. I'm curious about Kyoko being in this. But yeah, I think there's a wish. And my thing is, we don't know Sayaka's family life at home, but Madoka has a strong family life. She has a strong support system beneath her. And I'm like, is she becoming a magical girl, which I think she eventually will be for whatever reason, to save people or whatnot, or to change the structure, or to be strong enough? She may even become a magical girl to kill Kyubey alongside Homura. If she loses Sayaka, she may decide to wish to become a magical girl so that she can kill Kyubey. I don't know. Maybe, possibly. I kind of want that to be the case almost so that she can get rid of Kyubey, but she's like, maybe I want him to say something else. I'm a horrible person. Now that I think about it, I was clueless back then. Yeah, I'm glad Sayaka's kind of self-aware of how selfish she's being in this moment. I didn't know what it meant to pray for a miracle or the price of one. But yeah, nope. We're just going to not focus on that right now. It's fine. We're totally great. So we go back to the house. This opening scene with the egg. God, the yellow egg showing off, not giving Madoka trauma at all. I don't blame Madoka for being sad. I actually like that this series portrays a teenage girl going through seeing like one of her good friends get murdered in front of her authentically. Because I think if I was her in high school, I'd be sobbing. I would need a counselor. I would need some therapy to get over what I just witnessed. And she can't tell anybody what she just witnessed because one, nobody would believe her. And two, what are they going to do about it? So I feel for Madoka. I almost wish Homura would tell her more. But again, I think Homura just does not want her involved in this world. And she's like, I just need you to stay out of it. And the less you know, the better off you are. But I feel for her crying. It's really, really sad. Like, nope. And her saying that the cooking tastes good because she's alive. I feel like that speaks so much to Madoka being this pure, genuine soul. That she understands the value of life and she gets it. And that's what makes it so hard losing Mami. But I'm like, girl, if I'm being honest, Mami should have died back in that car crash. So she was kind of running on borrowed time anyway. So, I mean, it's not one of those things like, oh, she had her whole life in front of her, like Sayaka. It's not one of those moments. I'm like, she was kind of living off borrowed time. She wasn't supposed to be alive to begin with, but this demon cat granted her wish, so... I mean, I'm sad Mami's dead, but it's like, girl, you were going to be dead to begin with, so, your time was kind of borrowed from the start. What I find interesting is Sayaka is trying to play off everything, like it's just like nothing's wrong, nothing's changed, and she's just blabbing her mouth to Hitomi, and then she tells Madoka, she's like, hey, I'm just trying to keep things normal. Sorry, can't talk now. Meanwhile, Madoka's really sad about it. Hitomi, for me, this entire episode where they got taken to the warehouse, Hitomi for me was like, if you've ever watched Sailor Moon, Hitomi is Molly. I thought that Hitomi might be a secret magical girl in disguise. Doesn't seem to be that way since she was lured in by the witch. Instead, I think she's like Molly. I don't know what Molly's name in Japanese was. I know Serena is Usagi. Molly was the friend who was not a Sailor Scout in Sailor Moon. And in the Deke anime dub, she had a Brooklyn accent and talked like this, Serena. Like she just had that, because she sounded like Fran Drescher without being so nasally. But she's like, oh, Serena. Like that's basically Hitomi. If Hitomi had a Brooklyn accent in the English dub, I would not be surprised. It'd actually be hilarious. I wish they would do that with her in the English dub. Someone showed me a clip of her in the English dub, and I was like, ah, damn, she does not have a Brooklyn accent. I'm so sad. Very, very distressed. But yeah, but Madoka's just really sad. And can we talk about the English teacher? Oh my God. The English teacher who is unloading all of her private personal life matters onto these high school kids because she has issues and doesn't want to go to therapy. So she's just using her teaching license to allow her to unload on all of these kids, right? Because we have on the board here past subjunctive. If he were ready, we would go. And then he has below that, if I had enough time and money, I would travel around the world. What I love about it is she is unloading all of her burdens on these kids, and then at the very end she spins it to be something grammar related. I'm like, girl, work. So I was telling everybody in the Discord, I had an English teacher. He was going through a divorce, and in my freshman college English class, he used our class period as exactly what this woman is doing and just unloaded all of his life problems on us. And we were just sitting there like, what do we do? Oh my God, this seems like too much information. Should we be knowing this? Is this legal? Are we going to get taken to court with him? And the thing he didn't do was he didn't spin it back around and make it English. It just was like a therapy session. And then at the very end of class, he'd be like, all right, you have a 3-page paper due Thursday. And we'd be like, in what? So, are we writing your legal case? What are we doing? So I admire the hilarity and the dark humor of this, because she says, while a woman's prime age for I need to turn the sound off on that. While the woman's prime age for childbirth is based on a medical fact, what she's pointing to the board doesn't match what she's wrote down, which is so funny, is based on a medical fact. Says, using this to determine whether she's of marriageable age is a huge mistake. I like that slowly some people in the room are kind of looking at each other like, is this bitch for real? And then what she say there? Meaning that a woman over 30 clearly still has the chance for a loving marriage. God, I hope, or I'm screwed. So, yeah. Oh, my God. And everybody just kind of looks like Homura is just like, is this bitch for real? Therefore, you shouldn't be using the past perfect here, but instead using the present progressive tense. God, I love it. It's great. Basically, though, because Homura kind of looks back at Madoka and Sayaka like, yeah, you both just witnessed a murder. How was that? Was that fun? That happens quite a lot in this world. What I was going to put down here is that, is this the Barbie movie? Is this series the Barbie movie on anime acid? Is that this? Is that what this is? I feel like it is, because a lot of this, it feels like a lot of this series is talking about like women and the problems that women have. Like, you have the mom, right? You have Madoka's mother, who is striving to be the breadwinner in her family, who has to deal with the male associates she works at with work. And she has to go out drinking with them, and she has to climb the corporate ladder and do things she doesn't want to do, but she wants to do it in order to like be respected and make enough money amongst her peers. So you have that. Then you have this teacher who is going through all of these problems with her marriage, being like, oh, well, I guess I can't cook, so I guess I'm not a good enough wife. Or, oh, hey, I'm over 30, so I guess I'm not good enough to get married, huh? Or, we didn't even talk about how old you have to have kids to be normal. Like, they're just going through in this series a lot of different societal problems that women face in everyday life amongst casual societal conversations. And then on top of that, you have these girls who are trying to battle loneliness, trying to battle competitiveness with each other. So it's like Mean Girls, where they're all just trying to like battle each other when they should be uplifting each other and supporting each other, but that's not happening. And then you have the idea of them like trying to find love and it not working out. Like, there's all these issues girls face, and this series seems to be tackling them all one by one and pointing them out. And then, you know, you have to think about women are naturally like, a lot of women are smart, they're strong-willed, they have ambition, they have focus and drive. So I'm like, is Kyubey targeting women because we're the perfect war machines? Is Kyubey targeting women and not boys to become magical girls because we are the ultimate war machines in disguise? We just have to tap into some power and have a supernatural force bringing out of us. Is that what this is trying to make a statement about? I mean, it could. I don't see Kyubey going off and finding dudes to become magical boys, so maybe, who knows? Who knows? But the idea that it reminds me of the Barbie movie, because the theme in that film was about women, you know, instead of us supporting each other, we often tear each other down. And it's like trying to create a ladder for us to climb. And then it's like, well, where's the ladder even climb to? And that reminds me of this series a lot, because you have all these magical girls competing against one another. But it's like, to what avail? And I guess that's why I want to talk about these witches rewards. It's this Wyndham Rewards witches plan. we don't get a lot about that yet. All Kyubey was and Mami were like, oh, well, you get the grief seeds and it helps you gather up rewards. And I'm like, but you had Kyubey grant your miracle. Why do you need rewards? Do you just get bigger weapons if you do that? Do you get more magical powers to become stronger to fight stronger witches? I'm like, what are the rewards? Why is Homura staying from it? She did take the grief seed from Mami. That's true. But for the most part, she doesn't seem to be too concerned about the grief seeds or getting the rewards. She doesn't seem to care. So I'm like, what is the point of the grief seeds? Why are we collecting them? What rewards are they getting? What it sounds like to me is almost like, and I hate Pinocchio. It's like my least favorite Disney movie. It's creepy. People turn into donkeys in that movie. It's weird. There's some weird TF stuff going on. But it's kind of like there's a lot of temptation in that story, and the idea of being tempted and drawn into power. Because, Pinocchio doesn't want to have strings anymore, so Pinocchio doesn't want to be confined to strings. He wants to be free. And the boys on Pleasure Island want to be able to do whatever they want. They want to give in to their desires, and that's Pleasure Island kind of feels that for them. And so this series seems kind of like the grief seeds maybe fuel that desire that they have, or fuel the power that they have as magical girls, and maybe it makes them delusional. And Homura's like, I want to stay away from that. I know where my place is. I know what I'm doing. That's curious, but also, like, the idea of territories, it's pitting women against each other. I'm like, Kyubey. The end of this episode, Kyoko is like, oh, this new girl has my territory, huh? I'm like, bitch, Kyubey brought this bitch in, knowing he was going to give the territory to Sayaka, knowing she was going to turn over a new leaf and make the wish. He knew that. Mami ain't 6 feet in the ground. Her corpse ain't even cold in Witch World, and Kyubey's already making a move to, like, fill in the void. I'm like, excuse me, sir? My thing is, I'm like, Kyubey had to go tell Kyoko about the open territory, or at least send out the invitation. I'm like, Mami has not been dead for a day, dude, and you're already inviting people into the territory? I'm pretty sure if he really thought that Sayaka was gonna make the wish, he would have stuck around, like, maybe waited another 24, 48 hours and then invited the others. But I feel like he intentionally is stirring up shit to get Madoka to transform into a magical girl. Like, he is intentionally bringing Kyoko there. And my thing with that is, Kyubey is a evil mofo. Because Kyoko's like, oh, well, I can't have this new girl get in my territory. I'm going to beat the crap out of her. I'm like, hey, Kyubey, remember when you were talking about how you didn't have enough magical girls in the world? Remember when you were talking about how you need more magical girls because you don't have enough to kill the witches? Why are you supporting Kyoko beating up Sayaka? Don't you want them all to work together? But he doesn't. You would think if your goal was to stop the witches, you would want all of the magical girls to do like Sailor Moon, form a front and take on the witches together. But instead, it's almost like he's pitting them against each other and having them kill each other, which I'm like, what is the point of that? Unless he's a sadistic mother trucker that just wants to watch girls suffer. And then that might be it. He might be a demon that he might be the devil and just wants to watch these girls suffer by their own hubris. I could be wrong. I'm just waiting for this whole series to point out that, like, for there to be a turn and Kyubey is actually adorable and, like, a saint. And then y'all are like, Romania, why'd you think that he was a devil? And I was like, well, but yeah, so I'm just so like, what the fudge? Why are we doing this? Why are we having these girls fight each other? What's the point of that? I don't understand, Kyubey. These things aren't making sense, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, I do really like the scene that's on the rooftop now, and things don't mean the same now. They've watched Mami be killed. It's not like last episode they were like, oh, we're gonna be magical girls, isn't this a fun time? And now it's like, oh wait, that person's dead. There's more weight to this than I thought. And that stupid mofo Kyubey is just sitting there like, you gonna make the wish, Charlie? It's like, no. So yeah, Kyubey is just actively waiting there, waiting for them to make a wish, like the demon that it is. And they're just like, it's just, nothing has changed around them, but they know something that has changed them. And nobody knows. We're the only ones who know about witches and Mami-san. Nobody else does. it's like we're living in an entirely different world. I want to note a couple things about this moment. One, the school that they're in is the city is like just pitch white. It's like perfectly white and pristine, but it also kind of feels like a prison and like it's like clinically clean. It's like too clean. But also, Kyubey ain't dumb. This whole thing was set up from the start to make them feel isolated. Like once they lost one of the magical girls, it's like nobody else knows. So of course they already feel ostracized and marginalized. So it's just furthering like, well, we're already kind of isolated and alone with these thoughts. Might as well become a magical girl, I guess. That literally is what I think Kyubey was going for. Was like, yes, once I get these girls alone, they'll decide to become a magical girl. And they're like, Madoka, do you still want to become a magical girl? And then it instantly, I'm going to get a picture of this. As soon as they're like, Madoka, do you want to become a magical girl? And it just cuts to freaking Kyubey's unblinking creepy face. Like, do you? Like, it just instantly cuts like he's just waiting to hear her answer. And she's like, no, I don't really want to become a magical girl right now. She's like, I can't. She's like, I remembered how she died and I can't. She's like, I'm scared and I hate this. And like, Mami was really kind to show. And Sayaka is kind of like a gaslighter. She's just like, oh yeah, you know, Mami is just teaching us what it takes to fight and everything. I was like, no, you weren't there when Mami was telling Madoka like what a bad thing this is. And the thing that's probably crazy is what Homura said to Madoka in the last episode, Sayaka was not around to hear. So Sayaka is not able to offer like proper feedback to Madoka based on what Homura says. As far as we know, Sayaka has been pitted against Homura from the beginning because Homura comes off as a threat to Sayaka and she doesn't have the same rapport with her that Madoka does. Now, I was like, you know, Kyubey does something that's kind of unexpected in this moment, and I was really expecting Kyubey to do the opposite, because when Sayaka says what's going to happen to the city, I thought that Kyubey was going to tell Madoka and Sayaka, Kyubey was going to say, oh, well, you know, now that Mami's gone, the witches are going to slowly take over one by one, and I guess we're all just doomed. I thought that Kyubey was going to go that route and say that if they didn't become magical girls, that they were going to become doomed. But I don't know. Kyubey can't pry into their wishes. So Kyubey may have been like not able to say anything. But also Homura makes the comment that the wishes and miracles are fueled by your own selfish desires. So why would Kyubey say, oh, well, if you don't become magical girls, nobody's going to save the city? That's not the point of this. So Kyubey is honest. So we think. Kyubey says, oh, well, what's going to happen is that, you know, there'll be Mami's territory. This has been her territory for a while now. So it won't be long before one of them arrives to hunt witches and take it over. And so Sayaka's like, well, but all they care about is finding grief seeds. So that's just like Homura. But I don't think Homura is all about finding the grief seeds. She has turned down the grief seeds multiple times that we've seen, right? And Kyubey's like, well, Mami was a rare breed. Most people would only think about personal gain. But only other magical girls have the right to criticize that. Kyubey is surprisingly honest in this moment. And Kyubey's like, well, you know, this territory is going to become another magical girl. And, you know, yeah, you know, most people wouldn't be like Mami. They'd be doing it for personal gain. But they probably have a reason for that. I don't know what that reason could be. Oh. And it's like, oh, you know. But Kyubey's checking themselves so that if Sayaka and Madoka ever came back to him being like, but you told us, Kyubey could be like, I didn't say anything about that. I was just talking about this. Like, they're covering their trail really hard. Also, it's hitting me that, like, you have the red and blue combo with Madoka and Sayaka. And they're like, well, unless you're a magical girl, I guess you won't be able to figure out what that's all about. It's like Kyubey's just baiting them. And then he's like, but I understand how you feel. You know, I get it. It's unfortunate, but I can't pressure you into it. So I guess this is it. And like, Kyubey tries to frame it like, oh, we've just met this cat and the good times we've had. And now he's going to go off. He looks wistfully off into the air. He's like, oh, well, I guess this is it. And I'd be like, get out of here. Bye. The moment that cat said that people weren't going to die, that other magical girls would come in and take it over, I'd be like, well, good to know. great. Guess we're great here. Guess we're good. We just saw Homura beat that one witch. Day is saved. I don't have to worry about this anymore. Cool, you didn't say the world was in danger. We're fine. But, Madoka's like, well, I don't want any other girl to die like Mami did. Sayaka is worried that they're not going to be, like, out to save people just for themselves, which pot calling the kettle black. But, God, Kyubey is so too. He's like, I guess this is it. I just need to go search for girls who need my contract. That subtitle, they need my contract. I'm like, oh, that's worded so like just, only girls that really need my help. It makes Kyubey look like they're such a saint. Like, oh, I just need to go and do my due diligence and help these girls in need. But I'm glad you two are all right. Like, oh, just the worst. This little cat demon. I want to chuck it off a bridge. And then poor Madoka, she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh no, I'm sorry for getting you involved. It was short, but thank you. It was fun. Bitch knew. So then she goes to Mami's apartment. Again, why she wasn't with her family and why she was in this place, I don't know. I wish we could have found out more. But in the apartment, though, I want to point out the wallpaper. The wallpaper in this apartment, as I'm playing with my dog, is terrifying. This wallpaper has, like, there's an egg, it looks like, and something in between, but there's also this, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be Kyubey. It's something with, like, fangs and, like, ears jutting out from it. I'm like, is this supposed to be Kyubey's real form on the wall there in the wallpaper? I'm like, that wallpaper is creepy as F. I'm like, And then we have the specialty tea sets and everything. Yeah, and there's all the flowers and all the random patterns and everything. And the windows even have, like, checkers on it, which the aesthetic of this show, I can't tell if it's, like, a pseudo witch world or if it's just the aesthetic of everything, right? You just can't tell. I love the uses of lights and shadows in this. A part of me wonders if Mami is really dead or if she's going to come back as a witch. And we're going to talk about that with the witch that shows up here. But I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And then we see her. I kept wanting to see like a ghost or something pop up, but that's not what ends up happening, right? And she's sorry that she's weak. And I'm like, Madoka, you're not weak. I feel like the fact that Madoka is so kind and selfless is one of her strengths. She just doesn't view it as a strength. And having that compassion is a big strength that she has, but she just doesn't see it like that. And that's when she runs into Homura, who's like, okay, look, let's be real here. I like that Homura is like, you should not be blaming yourself. This is not your fault. Mami went in knowing exactly what was going to happen. No one's going to criticize the choices you made, so quit crying about it. It's not, you don't have to be, she's like, and even if they did, I wouldn't allow it. I like that Homura kind of in that moment stands up for Madoka, and she's like, I would defend you, but don't make stupid decisions. But you've taken my warning to heart. And Madoka's like, yeah, I have. And she's like, if I'd only listened. And she's like, if I listened to you sooner, I could have changed Mommy's fate. And she's like, no, you probably couldn't have, but I changed yours. She's like, I'm glad to at least have saved one life. So yeah, they make it seem like the thing that's so crazy about this is that we see later on in this episode, this witch influence all these people that are about to kill themselves. But Homura seems more concerned about saving Madoka than she does those other people. So how does that work? I feel like Homura knows things and she's not telling us for reasons. And I'm like, but what is the reason? And we're not getting to know yet. I also like the use of the lampposts. Like they walk by, there's all these shadows. They walk by all these lampposts. It's super creepy. And then I kept waiting for Madoka to ask her, like, what wish did you make? Why did you make a miracle? What's your reason for being here? But instead she asked how many people she's seen die, and she's like, too many, so many I've lost count. That's a bad sign. If Homura has seen dozens and dozens and dozens of girls die, she's not that old. But then again, how old is she? We don't know how long do the magical girls, are they suspended in this one age forever? We don't know. She's seen so many that she can't keep count of how many girls she's seen die. That would tell me as Madoka to be like, oh, good thing I dodged that bullet of becoming a magical girl. But now that Sayaka is a magical girl, it's like, what are we gonna? Of course, Madoka's probably gonna feel nervous because Sayaka's gonna be in danger, and she's like, Mami only had distant relatives, so no one will know she died. She's like, that's just how it is. If someone dies in there, there's no corpse left behind. She'll be forever missing. That's what happens to magical girls. And if I were Madoka, I would feel sad in that moment. I would, and I would feel sad for Mami, but that would also encourage me to not become a magical girl because I wouldn't want my family to never know what happened to me if something like that was a thing. And she's like, that's horrible. And Homura's like, yeah, it is. But that's the nature of the contract that grants us the power that we hold. We don't fight to protect people. We fight for the sake of our own wishes. And if our deaths go unnoticed by others and we're forgotten, that's just how it is. So yeah, it's like you don't choose a selfless life, you chose a selfish life. And that's the price you pay, is that no one will remember you or know that you've gone. So I wonder if it is kind of like a Lost Boys thing too, like Peter Pan, where the longer you're a magical girl, the more people around you will forget about you. That would be a crazy twist. I don't know. And maybe that leads you to becoming a witch. I don't know. I feel like the witches and magical girls are connected. And she's like, well, I will never forget about Mami or you. And she's like, I'm jealous, ma'am, that you remember her. And she's like, you too, Homura. I'll never forget about you either. I'll never forget how you saved us yesterday. And Homura is just like, She's like, I don't want to encourage you to become a magical girl. But also, when she clenches her fist there, I wonder if Homura, if the reason why she saved the others from Mami, if there is a selfish tie to it. And that's why she clenches her fist. She's like, oh, you think I just did this to save you, but there's another reason why I did it. And so, but she won't talk and tell us. So it's like, but bitch, you got to tell us why. And she won't do it. And then Homura's like, you're too kind. That kindness can bring forth an even greater sadness. Like, yeah, the kinder you are, the harder things hurt, right? Like, bitches, people that are arrogant and stuff, they don't get comments and things like that really impact them, so they just let it slide off. But somebody that is really kind takes it all to heart and overthinks things or takes things too seriously, and they get really impacted by it. And Homura's like, that's gonna cause you some problems. Because I have a feeling that, like Kyoko, some of these magical girls are bitches, right? Homura might just be the introvert of the group. So then we have the one boy who's upset that he can't, play music anymore, and she's making him listen to it. But I'm like, dude, my thing is, I think he's just mad in the moment, because if he was really mad at her this whole time, he's been listening to CD after CD. He could have came out and like told her nicely earlier, but I think he's just mad in the moment because they told him he's not gonna be able to play, and he's just mad about it. And the moment that he smashes the vinyl and like cuts his hand, I was like, oh my god, that part was crazy. And then he's like, it would take a miracle to save me. And then Sayaka's like, well, a miracle, you say? And then she looks up, and there's that mother trucking cat in the window. That cat really likes to make dramatic appearances and show up in windows where you least expect it, like the window of a car after you die, or the window of the person that you have a crush on when you're thinking about making a deal with the devil. Just happens to show up at those right moments. Just no big deal. Everything's fine, right? So then we go to this mall. Everything happens at these malls. I'm like, no wonder mall culture has died. All these witches are there. But yeah, so this point here where Madoka is talking about, like, if I think we could be friends if Homura and Chan, if we actually communicated. I'm like, yes, if Homura Chan would actually speak up, I think you could become friends. But I don't think Homura wants to become friends with you because she doesn't want you to get involved in the world of witches. And she probably thinks if you become friends with her, you'll think it'll be cool to become a magical girl. And then we're back at square one. So it is kind of like this awful paradox that Homura is stuck in to try to save Madoka. I love the use of shadows in the mall where the lights are so bright. There's all these dark shadows around. And I wonder if that's foreshadowing a witch attack when there's moments like that. I don't know exactly. But this scene here, she's like, I wonder why she ended up fighting with Mami-san. That'd be great. Would like to know that too, but we're not finding out. So then she sees Homura or Hitomi, and she sees that she has a stamp on her neck. Girl's been speaking of Molly, she's been putting Molly on the neck instead of on the tongue. Problems. And so she sees Hitomi-chan, and she has the little stamp on her neck. She's like, don't you have practice? But she seems like she's in a daze walking, and we see two angels standing next to each other like twins. Two angels in a TV, and that's the stamp. Okay. This episode reminded me a lot of an episode of Sailor Moon where all of these people, they all get gathered to like a retail sale, and it's like slowly draining their energy, and Molly's one of them, and Sailor Moon has to go save them. This was kind of like that storyline, but on acid. On literal Molly. So she's like, Kaname. She's like, I'm going somewhere not far better than here. She's like, let's join me. And so she like takes her away. It's one of those things like if Madoka hadn't bothered her, she probably wouldn't have followed. She would have kept walking. And instead, it's like the Pied Piper leading Madoka away. And then we see all these people coming out of the shadows that look like they maybe worked in the same place. And she's like, I forgot her cell phone number. I'm like, damn it, Madoka, how could you? This is why you don't need to forget cell phone numbers, so you can call Homura. I wondered why she didn't call her earlier, but that's why. So yeah, these people are all talking about being worthless, that they couldn't even keep this factory running. Like they're all led into this point where they're all together, and they say there's no place for me in this world anymore, not now. So here's the thing. We've established that witches are born from despair. So we are told. And here's the thing. Go back to this theory of mine. It would make sense that these people that have lost their jobs and feel isolated would be drawn into the witch, right? They would be drawn into the witches who are born from despair. Because so far we have the magical girls who are supposedly born from hopes and desire. Here's my thing. I feel like my theory is that when the magical girls' hopes and desires are dashed, they become witches. But here's this other thing. The witches feed and prey on people who are lost and isolated. We've established, I'm going to like snake around here, that the price of your wishes often leads you what? Lost and isolated. So these magical girls become the very thing that the witches feed off of. So I don't know if Kyubey is creating all these magical girls to feed the witches. I don't know. And if they destroy him, he's like, oh, I guess you can become stronger, but then we'll just create stronger witches. I don't know. I'm waiting for the reveal of what this whole thing is about. I know I'm not ready for it, but I'm waiting for it. You all will save this clip to replay whenever we find the truth of the matter out, right? But these people are talking about being isolated and alone. And they're just like, yeah, sure. And they start mixing these liquids together. And we see the mom telling Madoka, she's like, whatever you do, listen up, Madoka. She's like, if you don't handle these things properly, something terrible could happen. And I'm like, why do you have those things? And she's like, our entire family could end up dying. I'm like, what? Make sure you remember that. I'm like, what are those? Are those battery? Is it battery fluid? Is it poisons? Is it like conditioner and shampoo you should mix together? What are those things? But they mix them together. And I'm like, okay, so we know that's not supposed to happen, but they're household items. And she's like, oh, no. My question is, she's like, oh, they're performing a holy ritual. If I were Madoka, I understand why I would be concerned and panicking and not thinking about what my best friend under a spell was saying. But the moment she said holy ritual, I'd be like, wait a minute, what? Witches? Holy ritual? What are we doing? So that doesn't seem to fall through unless it's summoning the witch. And that's the holy ritual. Maybe was the mom a magical girl? And the mom was trying to tell her, be like, don't put these things together. You'll summon the witches. I don't know. My thing is, why did Hitomi end up there? Like all of the factory workers ending up at the factory because they feel despair of losing their job and they go back to that source of despair and that's where the witches gather them and eat them. That all makes sense. But Hitomi was not working at that factory. So I feel like someone deliberately put the stamp on Hitomi, sent her down to where Madoka was, knowing it would lure Madoka to the witch. That feels like a stunt. And it feels like Kyubey is responsible for it. I'm going to blame Kyubey for everything until I'm proven wrong. So yeah, she's like, we're all going to a journey to another wonderful world. It's wonderful, right? And then she's like, oh, our living bodies are holding us back. But you'll understand soon. And Madoka's like, oh shit, no. All these people with crisscrossing shadows once again and the lights. So again, are summoning the witches going to another ethereal plane of existence? I don't know. But Madoka's like, no, I'm not having this. She's like, instead of doing this, I'm going to throw it out the window. I forget. And here's the thing. Nothing happened when she threw it out the window. It wasn't, I was waiting for there to be like the chemicals reacting and there being an explosion. No, but she throws it out the window and we see like the cross of the window seal, the window pane. It's really well done. And then, yeah. And then everybody starts acting like a zombie to come near her. And she's like, what the heck do we do? And I love when she grabs the doorknob and it looks like a vinyl CD. It's like reflective. But she tries to go in there, lock the door, and it's too late. There's, what do they get here? There's like the ground. She's in a cage. She's stuck. And that's when the witch starts to appear. Which I'd be freaked out as hell. Yep. And then we see the angels on this TV screen. This part's freaky as hell. So creepy. No, thank you. And the witches all start to grab at her. Oh my God. Like, it is probably, I don't know what screen is on there, like what text is on the screen, but then her animation style completely changes, which I'm like, what? So, y'all, the animation style changes. It gets weird. She goes in the television and then we're in this weird world again. I want to try to see if I notice anything that stands out other than the carousel and the eyes and the crosses again. And her animation style is completely without any line art and squigglies. It's like she's just floating. It's very Neon Genesis. A lot of this was Neon Genesis. I wanted to point out two things. When she goes up to the group there that arrived, they all start clapping. And that was a scene from Neon Genesis. I won't tell you when or where because that would be a spoiler, but there's like a clapping scene. I was like, that's Neon Genesis. Also, at the very beginning, I was going to comment this and I got distracted by Kyubey theories. When Sayaka is standing in front of the doorway to the room of her friend, down at the bottom, it doesn't make any sense. At the bottom of the door frame, there is an exit sign pointing away from the hospital room, right? It doesn't make any sense for the sign to be there at the bottom of the floor. It's like an aesthetic weirdity that's just there. But the thing that gets me is it's like the show is saying, Sayaka, if you just let him be and you walk away, you won't become a magical girl and you can exit stage right and we'll be done. But that's not what you chose. And so you didn't do the exit like when you could. Now you can't escape. I don't know. Also, whenever Kyubey's like, well, it was nice knowing you all, and I guess you won't become magical girls, so bye. I was like, bye, bitch. Story's over. Episode 4 is the last episode. This was a great run. Good miniseries. We don't need to go any further, but that's not what we get. So, yeah. And so Madoka's just floating around in this. There's weird words all over across the carousel, but I can't tell it what it was. It looks like the witches are twins because there's two. They each have one wing and they're holding a television in between them. It's bizarre, but it looks like they're twin witches, which would match the stamp and the decal on it. And so, yeah, she seems like she's drowning. There's a one-winged, like, angel in the beginning. It keeps, and it's like they're hugging a pole. Okay, but there is a long-haired, pigtailed girl at the center with the hearts. The witch that was in the last episode that was the mouse had the nurse thing with pigtails coming out as well. Madoka has pigtails as well. So, I don't know. But also Kyubey has the two pigtail-like things coming out of its ears. So I'm like, we have lots of options here. What can we determine from this? I can't spell right now. Are they a witch? I don't know. Was Kyubey possibly connected to a girl that was the first magical girl and then she became a witch? Is Kyubey part of a secret religious cult that's trying to find someone that looks like their original deity who became a witch, and Madoka fits that description really well and might tie to the long-haired, pink-haired girl in the OP? I don't know. But I feel like, or are all magical girls? Not all magical girls have pigtails though, but Mami did. What if Mami was like one that Kyubey was trying to find to fit the description of the magical girl with pigtails they're looking for? I don't know, but so far we've seen some witches that have pigtails in their designs. I don't feel like that's a coincidence. I feel like there might be some connection there, but I don't know. And yeah, there's like 6 angels on that one. It looks kind of like a circus. Weird, weird, weird. And just as the part that freaked me out was that she's like, is this a punishment? And we start to see Mami on the screens around her. And I don't know if like the witch is showing her her own memories or if it's connecting to Mami or what's happening. But her saying, is this a punishment? I'm sure this happened because I'm weak, because I'm a liar. And I'm like, no, I don't think that it is because she's weak. But Madoka seems to think that she's getting punished because she couldn't save Mami. And Homura's already told her, you're looking too much into this. It's not your fault. Quit blaming yourself. You're not a liar. And then, yeah, and she's showing her all these things. That's why I'm being punished. But yeah, this TV screen comes down. Does that TV screen have something on it? I want to see if this TV screen flashed anything. It starts to flash something. Like there is a letter or something. Or eyes that are in the TV screen. Like what the fudge? But it goes and starts to like, it shows her a picture of herself. So I don't know if it's saying like a reflection of her. And then it falls down further and the angels start to grab her like they're going to tear her apart. That part was freaky. They like stretch her like they're going to kill her. That part was really creepy. And that's when Sayaka comes in with the blue beams instead of the yellow. And they have a sword that, you know, allows her to fight through it. She gets the cape and everything. She gets the cape. She gets the sword with the rainbows coming through. The TV's like bleeding all these technicolors. These angels start coming out and she starts to just take her katana and slash through them. Yeah, with the blue light. Yep. And says, go back to hell. Funny that. I was like, ooh. Is it pot calling the kettle black? We'll see. But then there's the grief seed that comes from it. And okay, you can see at the very end, coming from the spurt of blood, there is a black figure with red pigtails spurting blood. If we find out they've been just killing themselves, that would be like the cruelest thing if Madoka find out that Kyubey has been having these girls kill each other. Just in which form? I feel like I'm so close. But damn it, there's still so much we don't know. But the carousel's starting to fall apart. There's still so much we don't know. I'm like, y'all, I'm close to figuring it out. And then Homura's like, And maybe Homura's figured it out. Maybe Homura has figured out that it's girls killing girls. And she's just like, bitch, what did I just tell you all? Like, Homura's pissed. I love her standing by the moon. I love that shot of her by the moon with, like, the warped metal and everything that looks like a scythe. She looks like such a Grim Reaper throughout all of these episodes, but I love Homura. I wish we'd know more about her. So we see everybody's okay, and she's like, well, that was a close call, but I got this cool cape and skirt and everything. And Madoka's like, you look like you became a magical girl. And she's like, oh, I'll be fine. She's like, I did it right on my first job. Madoka's like, yeah, but now you could die. And I love that shot of Homura in the shadows where she's like, bitch, what did I just tell you? Like, Homura's like, come on now. And she just seems so mad in this moment. Like, I can't believe, like, she looks betrayed. And of course, Sayaka's like, well, you're too late, Miss Transfer Student. And the thing about it is Homura's like, I didn't want the grief seed. I didn't want you to choose this, but it's too late for Sayaka now. The thing that's creepy too is that when the one boy wakes up, first of all, it's like all the chairs. And the thing is, chairs just move everywhere. It's the creepiest thing about this show is there's just random objects that just move. And there's reason why they move. People probably just scooted them around, but it's still creepy as hell. But then he wakes up and in the light of the moon, he can feel his hand again. And that face he makes. I don't know. I'm really curious for episode 5 to see what the repercussions are of the wish and what ends up happening. I'm like, what's going to go on here? Because that part is creepy as hell. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to get out of that. Like, what's the price? Uh-huh. But yeah. And that's when we get Kyoko. I heard Mami kicked the bucket. So I came all the way out here. And she feels like she gives me Bakugo energy from My Hero Academia. She's like, I came all the way out here, but what gives? This isn't what you told me. Like, she has the red, yeah. And she has a ponytail. And I like the Kyubey. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, there's already a new magical girl in this area. But she just made a contract not too long ago, though. And she's like, what the hell? That pisses me off. She's like, but I don't want to give such a great area to some rookie. So then she's like, I think I'm going to beat the crap out of her. And that's it. And that's the episode. No big deal. Everything's fine. I don't know. God, it's like I knew Sayaka was going to take the bait and become a magical girl, but I don't like the way Kyubey is like manipulating these girls to be against one another. And because Kyubey could be like, well, maybe you shouldn't do that, but yeah, that's not how this is going to go. Not everybody was nice like Mami, apparently. As this girl, like, just randomly consumes something. Yeah, and Kyubey is just sitting there on the thing like, oh, I didn't expect you to come. It's like, bullshit, you didn't. So, yeah. We now finally have our red hair entering the fray as we start part 2 here. This isn't what you told me. Yeah, bullshit. Kyubey got her to go there so that we could have more conflict because Kyubey's a bastard. So, yeah, there's so many questions that I still have, but I feel like I'm on the right track. But then a part of me feels like the show's going to like completely pull the rug out from under me at some point, and it just depends on when it's going to happen. So I will be honest with y'all. My moderator is being super kind. So thank you, Geen. My moderator is being super kind checking these comments, but I am telling them to like be diligent. If there's a spoiler, a hint, or a clue, this is not a long series, y'all. So if you're waiting for me to figure something out, I'm going to figure it out. We got, we're on episode 4 already. We've only got 8 more episodes of the actual series and the movies. We're going to figure it out as we go. It'll be okay. I'll get there. You won't have to wait very long for me to find answers. So I ask you to please be patient with me, but I am not going to read any comments with hints or clues or suggestive things that could be a spoiler. I just got to do it because I'm loving the mystery too much and I don't want it spoiled. So we'll see. We'll see. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back real soon with more Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Bye.